So just to give you the agenda, just to see it again on the screen so you know what we're talking about here. So the first topic, maintenance repairs. I think some of the concepts here is we get a lot of data coming in. We do want to look at, big numbers and how things add up. Normally stuff, if the data has been set up and it's being collected at the right level, we're getting these reports where we can get total labor, indirect, direct. We can see costs that are broken down by PM, corrective repairs, user cost damage, right? So we want to look for those things in the reports to make sure that we're using the right collection method, whether it's capitalized work or it's wear and tear or it's accident work. So those are critical things to make sure that you're able to dissect things. And if you have to get into the details, you want to be able to go down into task-related items by classes of equipment. So some of those things are extremely important. And I will bounce towards the end and talk about some of these report examples. Okay. Downtime. Critically here, we normally say that one of the indicators for your comparison is within equipment, within classes, and generally speaking from the customer's point of view, the downtime is the critical availability numbers, right? So we want to know, especially equipment that ranks itself at some point, it's not meeting downtime or it's causing a situation of availability, which the fleet size is being impacted. So we want to make sure that obviously if you think you bought it right and you're maintaining it correctly, that downtime is within reason. There's also the ability to look at downtime details and use those as an indicator so that from a perspective of month to month, you should be reporting and looking at, how much downtime is happening by class or then by department, by the organization that you're dealing with. In terms of fuel, I think it's more a case of, are you tracking all the fuel consumption and is it getting into the total cost of operating, so that we can see that by the cost per meter type of approach, you're seeing how things compare in the same class of equipment, similar equipment, and so you get some comparative analysis. The other thing about that is you want to be able to track it so that the expectation is that the fuel usage should be fairly even, and then you get affected by price, so then you should be able to say this is how much we're used over this time period, and based on a price increase of X, I'll know where that's going to go in the future. So that should have something to do with it. And then within the class itself, you should be comparing like items against like items to see the highs and the lows and figure out why that's happening. Obviously, we want to make sure you're getting your field transactions in, and if you're not, that should be a question of, figuring out how to do that, and that should be something in a consultative way we can expand on down the road. Depreciating is talked about a lot, and I hear folks that say, well, gee, that's kind of a number that gets pushed around, and maybe in some organizations the finance handles all that, so it's not our issue. But I think having capital related to the depreciation in your reports is important. I mean, I think that in some cases we talk about, reports and we're looking at just expenses, right? But depreciation is an expense. It's just not always used as a indicator, but it should be considered if it's been depreciated over this amount of time, how does that relate to other things that are like issues? So it really should be looked at as a total reporting cost, if not a billing cost. And then some of the things that should happen when you get new equipment is you should deal with your expected resale value and find out if you're going to average, say, a 10-year unit, and we bought it today for X, we should be adding 3% times 10 or 30% at least to forecast that future cost, so we have something to relate to as far as where we're at in terms of depreciation against what we think it'll cost in the future. Resale value is a tough one. So the same comment I made before, if you've got the new unit coming in and you're figuring, 30% increase in cost over the next 10 years, that's a long-range approach where you can look at that against some value like Kelly or the Black Book, or NADA, the NADA guide. So you might want to be looking at some of those numbers and putting them into the system so you can say that I figure where it's at. I know about what it's worth, and that's going to give us X value at the end of this year based on what we know on all these units. So giving some other, third-party reference and then figuring out the outliers that are higher in downtime, whatever, might help you in your analysis. In terms of usage, I think that one of the things that gets hard to report on is in comparing things. So if you're getting good usage data monthly and you're not getting bad odometer or hour meters, then from month to month your cumulative cost should be, cumulative mileage that is, should be related to your cost per meter so that you're getting good data to compare. And so, things should be set up so it's like, so meter against hours against the same time period, whether it's last 6 months, last 2 years, whatever that is, you should be tracking that. All right, so I do want to talk about this a little bit, but I want to jump into some examples real quick. So I'm going to go out of here and we'll come back to the bottom of this in a minute, but I just want to run through a couple of examples of reports. In terms of cost analysis, I think one of the important things we want to look at is, when you compare costs, you do want to look at your acquisition versus maintenance, and then kind of, get your PM cost out of the way to make sure you're comparing apples to apples, because you don't want the PM cost to really influence overall where you're at in terms of what you paid for it and how much you repaired it in terms of true repair. And that has to be looked at, from fleet to fleet, but that's one of the other indicators of looking at costs. The next one would probably be more along the lines of tracking downtime. So if you're looking at downtime and you're looking at those details and you're analyzing it in terms of total, and then finding out, what from that can tell us if something's trending, and then we're going to look at that. This is where we might want to see downtime over a period of quarters, months, years, where the downtime is going up or down for that group, and then drill down into, what time period, what was happening, and seeing if that's affecting age. We didn't replace stuff, so the downtime should be increasing. We're looking at fuel, and I guess the main thing here is that if we're tracking fuel, we should have some highs and lows parameters against a standard of miles per gallon or miles per quart or whatever indicator you need for that, and so we can kind of see by group, where things fall out by class of equipment, and then be able to drill down. So it should be something we're using graphically to look at those items and then figure from there why we're not breaking it down, or what do we need to do to get that little better analysis. In terms of tracking depreciation, you should always have some indicator. Obviously, if you can see that I'm trying to show a little bit about depreciation over here in the right column, so in the purple area, where we're tracking it, letting the system do its milking depreciation during the life of the vehicle, it should be into our total cost analysis, so we can look at these things by classes of equipment and compare those classes. Looking a little more at utilization, of course, we want to look at it two ways, but the one way here is maintenance class. So I can look at vehicle to vehicle, I can look at the average, meter usage, and then for the same class of equipment, sedan full size, and then see the average is 1540 here, and then you can see the meter usage and whether that's falling in line with that time period. So again, it's really to find out, why stuff is high or low, and obviously if it's affected by age, then we got to figure out whether it's recycling right or not, or someone's just are souping the newer ones versus the older ones, which is always a classic problem. And then the final one here is just to say something about if you're looking at performance analysis and what's happening in terms of the total cost, then we should be able to look at what's affecting the cost in terms of your downtime, your condition, your ranking between those classes of equipment, ranking them by their usage. So everything greater than X thousand miles are being compared against each other. So we got the low ones out of the way, and we can focus on the ones that are in a higher group. So that's kind of some sampling reports I wanted to put in with this talk because we don't have a whole lot of time to drag down detail. Okay. So just to wrap up here, some of the things you should be thinking about is, are we getting good meter readings? Are they coming in well? Do we have that relied on by automation? So a good GPS system. So if some folks have some very good data in there, that would be a feather in their cap to match those reporting because they know that their usage is coming in. I think that's part of getting your arms around your data. If we're saying, hey, sometimes we're getting into some vehicles now that are much expensive in terms of tracking. So maybe we should be looking at 2 meters. Maybe we should force and say this whole class should be looked at utilization-wise. And let's definitely use 1 meter that's getting it electronically, and the other meter is maybe being updated by the maintenance staff. Okay. So those are kind of the ones I want to talk about. I know this is a quick webinar, and so hopefully we can, get down here to what are you going to do with this data? What's the whole idea here of moving forward with this data? So the kind of idea we're having here is that we'll kind of get some thought going into this. Then we'll go into another power webinar on May 25th, and then we'll further the discussion and talk about how we can use Ethelbert software to help this decision-making process. Okay. So do we have any questions?
We're going to open the floor for all of your questions, so don't be shy. Just a reminder, if you have questions, send them to the host, and then I'll be happy to relay them to Alan. We did have one question just come in. Where are the reports available in the system?
Yeah, primarily I think from my point of view, since I work mostly on the FA website, I'm getting them from the reporting module themselves. These are out-of-the-box reports, so it's pretty straightforward stuff. I use the analysis for replacement analysis screen to rank things. So over there, another standard module in the software is the replacement analysis, performance analysis screen. So that's where those come from.
Okay, we had another similar question about how the reports are developed and accessed within the system, but I think you just answered that one. Do you have a favorite or must-have report out of these 6 that you just told us about?
Favorite what?
Do you have a favorite report or kind of a must-have that you seem to use a lot that you just presented on?
Yeah, I didn't show it. It's called the average cost per meter report by class of equipment. It's more of a report that allows you to go directly to Excel. So I'm familiar with that one, and I've counseled folks on using the average cost per meter because it gives you total cost for time periods, and then you can quickly, in Excel, start flipping through different groups, and you can do it by maintenance class one time and do it by department another, and then especially with some of the bigger departments, maybe use that as a discussion point in saying this is where your equipment is underutilized. So it's the utilization report that I showed, but I also like the average cost per meter because you have actual numbers for the same time period.
Okay, great. And someone asked if this presentation is recorded, and it is being recorded. We will be sending out an on-demand version to anyone that was registered. So if you need to refer back to anything, we'll have that for you, of course. We'll hang out, Alan and I, for just a couple more minutes if you have any last-minute questions. Otherwise, you can contact Alan directly or me, sarah.larkin@assetworks.com. I'll be happy to pass those on. So we'll just hang out for a couple more minutes, and feel free to send some more questions our way. Alan, where exactly is the report you just mentioned, the average cost report in the system?
It would be under the reporting folder where it says cost analysis.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I assume the users would have full access in that case. So something that has the title in it, average cost per, and then per meter or per usage, yeah.
So some people have found missing pieces of their data, and they find, depending on class, that certain metrics may not line up. Can these be shown in the reports here, or have they been identified already?
So I guess it depends. If I have some customers I've known over time found out that they were never depreciating it, so they never had the depreciation in their historical cost tables. Right. And there are methods where you can go into and batch up that data to catch up. So, you know, again, a consultant approach could say, look, you should be consistent. So let us know what your time period is. You didn't do depreciation for the last 4 years. We can catch up as long as we have the following data available, so we can help you make that update to catch up.
Okay, great. So thank you so much, Alan. It looks like that's all the time we have today. I want to thank you again for taking the time to attend today's presentation. Hopefully you've all secured some valuable takeaways to keep in mind moving forward. Alan, I'd like to thank you on behalf of AssetWorks once again for sharing your expertise and product highlights with us today. As you can see, Alan's contact information is available, so feel free to contact him with any questions you may think of later. We'll be posting links to the webinar recording on the community, and we'll also be sending it out in an email to all of you that are registered. Just a reminder that we do have the next part of this webinar series on Wednesday, May 25th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and that will be all about what do I do with this data once I have it. So thank you so much, and have a great